We live in interesting times where there's elements of being traditional that I think are appreciated, but then there's other aspects of it that women maybe aren't appreciating.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be tricky for guys to kind of know like how much of it I can lean into. But I think it's hard for some guys because they may not feel that the women are being traditional in the same fashion that they're being expected to be. But we live in interesting times where there's elements of being traditional that I think are appreciated, but then there's other aspects of it that women maybe aren't appreciating.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be tricky for guys to kind of know like how much of it I can lean into.
Mm-hmm.
For example, like what you just said, like picking you up, greeting you at the door, opening the doors for you, things like that.
Yes.
That's traditional.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's hard for some guys because they may not feel that the women are being traditional in the same fashion that they're being expected to be. So it can kind of,
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever felt like, again, we're going to get into expectations.
Mm-hmm.
I'm big on like, and I'll probably say this again, you only expect what you're willing to give.
Mm-hmm.
So if for example, if I'm pursuing you, right, and I want good communication with you, I will lead with good communication.
Mm-hmm.
I demand respect, for example, with anybody that I'm talking to, particularly my son.
Mm-hmm.
So I will always respect him.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I'm being disrespectful, that's not inviting you to respect me. That's inviting you to disrespect me. Right? So I got to come at you correct.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I'm kind of setting myself up to get whatever I'm giving.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So again, the courtship thing. So when you're talking about being traditional, I think that maybe that's where it's challenging for a lot of guys. They might feel like, hey, like I need you to be willing to be traditional if you want me to be too. But we live in a different time where I think that's a little tricky.
Now my question is, what's traditional for a girl? Like, what do you mean by that?
Sure. No, this is a beautiful, beautiful question. And I think there's a lot of ways to answer that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll give my somewhat take on it because I'm a little older than y'all.
Mm-hmm.
To me, I'll kind of give my what I would look for. I think myself and a lot of the guys that I have spoken to, when we talk about traditional, the values that, like, for example, my father taught me was I need to be able to provide financial safety, stability, and security to the family.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm comfortable understanding that that's, for the most part, going to be sitting on my shoulders alone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to expect her to necessarily have to shoulder majority of that burden. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
She might do some of it, but the vast majority, and I say majority, I mean like 75% and above, is going to be on me. I was raised for that.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand that. I imagine for women, that's not necessarily the same experience growing up.
Mm-hmm.
I do have an older sister, so we have talked about it, but again, she doesn't represent all women.
Mm-hmm.
We're just talking about traditional.
Mm-hmm.
Then how we carry ourselves. And this is a beautiful example because this is why we start talking about the differences between the generations. Okay. So remember earlier we were talking about social media, and we're going to get into that question as well. There's expectations I think that men have, but they don't always feel comfortable speaking on because we live in very sensitive times where if certain men say what they really want from their partner,
Mm-hmm.
the language gets thrown around like controlling or manipulative or restrictive. And I think it's a lot of times what I hear, because I try to listen and absorb and consume content from both men and women, because I'll try my best to be balanced here and really trying to be a bridge. That they want their partner, their prospective partner, to carry herself in a certain manner of respect, of integrity, of dignity, of honor, meaning the way she presents herself. We know that for women, your looks are, to a certain degree, you might not like this word, but I think to a certain degree, it's like currency.
Mm-hmm.
You get a lot of value from the way you are perceived and the way you portray yourself. That's why social media, again, is a thing. Because women, a lot of women, not that men don't make any money there, but I think we can say safely, women make the majority of the money on social media because you're attracting our attention.
Mm-hmm.
Is that fair before I continue?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Let me give you another example building on that. So I had a client, she was your age.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking at one point about how she portrayed herself on Instagram because she wanted to know, I don't typically look at my client's social media, but she wanted to know how she came off as. right, for a potential partner.
Mm-hmm.
And so we looked through it and I gave her my feedback and I was like, listen, I think a lot of these photos are quite revealing. And if I was you, and also to put out more context, she wanted to be married in the next like 2 to 3 years.
But she was revealing herself on Facebook or whatever.
On Instagram. Yeah, I mean, a bit, right? And again, let's get into the details, right? I love to define words. When I say revealing, I mean like lots of body exposed.
Like bikini pictures.
Bikini pictures, going to like raves, things like that.
Oh,
like, you know, chest, butt, like all that
Gotcha.
stuff is being exposed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying like hypersexualized, but I'm giving you the perspective of what a lot of men think.
Right.
Men look at that and say, this is like the context. I think a lot of men will look at that and say like, oh yeah, that's attractive for sure. Like we're visual, right? Men we're biologically driven that way to seek you all out, right? But then we're going back to the concept of being traditional, like you asked me. Do I see myself marrying somebody like that? Probably not.
I see.
Because when I see you portray yourself that way, it comes across as you needing a lot of attention and validation.
Yeah.
And that can create not insecurity, but it can create a feeling or an impression to a man that's like, I don't want to take that seriously. It could be the same way, perhaps like you said a moment ago, Maya, when you're going out with these guys and they ain't got no car.
Mm-hmm.
They don't seem like they have any ambition. They don't seem like they have any drive.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, I don't want to take that guy seriously. Like maybe where you're at now, right? You're like, no, you got to come correct. I need you to bring more here.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for a lot of men, they would look at that too. Like, then I need you to come correct. Like, be presentable, carry yourself in a manner that you want to be taken serious. And if you don't know, ask.
Mm-hmm.
Ask. And she asked me. So I gave her that feedback because I want her to be happy. I want her to get what she wants.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, well, then you might want to consider carrying yourself differently. So I was like, you should probably remove these photos.
Mm-hmm.
And she did it. And it wasn't me trying to tell her, like, shaming her and saying, oh, you're a bad woman or you're not allowed to reveal yourself. I asked the deeper question. What's the purpose of you sharing this in a public fashion? If you had a man that was there that you really appreciated, respected, and valued, again, so now I'm kind of getting into the question, does that not matter more than whoever these strange people on the internet are that we don't even know? They have no context for who you are. They don't know what you're about.
Yeah.
They haven't had the privilege to actually get to know you in that real and authentic way. What would you say to that?
I feel like I'm going through that now because that's what we were at one point we were arguing about it, and like you said, I was throwing those words like you're being controlling, you're being like you're manipulative, but the way you put it, I see, I understand now. Like it makes sense, honestly.
Yeah, it matters.
Yeah,
it matters. It's kind of like that's why I gave the example about how women can perceive men. I love to try to connect those dots because I think that's where sometimes we as men and women, we talk past each other. I think a lot of times we want the same thing, but we just don't communicate it in a way that we both can understand.
See, I thought he was just, it was his own insecurities because he wanted me to get rid of social media at one point. Like, so.
But at the same time, it's the way he comes across.
Like you said.
Of course. The approach always matters. How I talk to you always matters. See, I'm not saying I don't expect everybody to be me, but if this is somebody that I care about, I really got to think about how I'm going to present information to them. Because I don't want to come across that way. I'm like, listen, you're your own person. Of course you can do whatever you want. But you want to be here, right? I want to be here. There's expectations that you have of me in order for you to stay here. Is that fair?
Yeah.
There's expectations I have of you if you want to stay here. That's not control because you're free to leave. I'm free to leave at any point, right? We can both back out. But we said we want to be here. So these are conditions that we need to fulfill in order for us to both want to be here.
Right.
Does that make sense? That's how I would present it. I don't hear a lot of guys present it this way because they come off to me very arrogant when they try to talk about it. And I think this is why I like having these, because it's hard. This is not easy for me to try to always put into words, right? This is just me absorbing not just content that's out there, but my clients. Like I have male clients who've never had relationships before that are my age. I've had women, like I gave you the example, that want to be taken seriously, but they might be upset that they can't do it the way that they want to do it. And I say, listen, what did we say earlier in this conversation? Relationships aren't all about you. You can't go into it and say like, and you better accept me exactly the way that I am. And if I change, you can't change. That's not a relationship. That's a dictatorship. It goes both ways. We need to be able to honestly have the discussion. It's not 100% my way or your way. That's not even the definition of a compromise. We have to literally concede things to come together. I didn't get exactly what I wanted. You didn't get exactly what you wanted, but yet we decided to still make it happen. That's where I think we get lost. And a lot of the content I see online mirrors that. It's like women saying, if you don't like this, he's this, F him. And if it's men there, they're saying, oh, she's not want to be taken seriously. She don't want to listen. Don't give her a try. So we're just talking past each other and arguing at each other instead of recognizing what it's really going to take for us to make it work.
Right.